Welcome to episode 3 of the Making Rooms TTRPG podcast, where I ruminate on designing, publishing, and finding community for the Explore ROOMS TTRPG and more. If you're interested in supporting this journey of publishing my first role-playing game, Zine, on Kickstarter, you can use the show notes, find the link, and go follow along and be notified when the Kickstarter goes live on February 1st. Thank you for joining me again. I'm going to start us off right away with the Explore Room of this episode. You're in a spacious dome-shaped room, which contains an underwater paradise. The room is decorated with coral sculptures and seashell chandeliers. At the back of the room sits a humongous and seemingly sad oyster, and its shell is completely shut. How would you like to explore this room? Do you want to investigate the chandeliers and the sculptures? Do you want to go talk to or interact with the sad oyster? Because of your kind words and big smile, the oyster opens up and gives out a big, bubbly laugh. A school of colorful fish swim in and out of the open oyster. Inside the oyster, you see a plethora of iridescent pearls that you can take. These are a thank you for cheering up the oyster. And at the very back of the oyster, you see an opening big enough that you could crawl through. I hope you enjoyed the uncheerful oyster room. Now for the inspiring tip for this episode. I was on the One Shots Tavern Discord, and I asked the question of whether or not, or I said something to the effect of that I wasn't sure if I should emphasize the no rules, no prep nature of the Explore Rooms rule set, or if I should emphasize the setting, the place called Rumino, and the adventures that the kids go on in this labyrinth of space. And this is what user Boanepity shared with me. He said, when you want to share something, you emphasize what's unique about the experience. Even as a rules light system, unless your system is showcasing an outlandish feature, it's information obtained by the curious. So he's saying that no matter what it is, whether it's features or setting, rules, that the person that you want to attract to it needs to be curious about that thing. And so uniqueness, differentiation, whatever makes the system or the thing new and surprising to the viewers, what's going to get them to come and pay attention. So our main topic for this episode is mechanics or setting. And this is me taking that tip and working through it in my own head of what should I put the emphasis on. So what I loved about the mechanics of Explore Rooms early on was that it took very little for me to prepare to play. In fact, my kids would often yell at me, "Dad, tell us another Explore Room." And I would. And I didn't need to, maybe I wasn't in the mood, or maybe I was tired or something like that. That certainly came up. But if I was fine and that we were most places that any place that we were, there was rarely a reason to not go ahead and jump into and create one or two Explore Rooms for them to imagine themselves in. And so I loved being able to do that kind of on the fly. Now, I have some comfort with improvisation, and that's not everybody's comfort level. But that's something that I really enjoyed. And I do think that this rules light and the kind of 5 steps that I created for myself to kind of build out these rooms could help other people who have either a fear of being a GM or are uncomfortable improvising, I think that it could give a lot of people the ability to jump in and start creating, or at the very least, use the books that I'm writing to kind of just jump in, read what's on the page, and give their kids kind of a fun experience that they haven't had before. So I was very enamored with the rules and how it could be a kind of break some barriers for people wanting to share role-playing games with their kids or become a game master themselves with, just the smallest of blocks to build with. That being said, the setting that we've created is also pretty special. Because I focused on one room at a time and just moving the kids from room to room to room, sometimes sending them back and forth, but often a very linear kind of movement. We created by proxy this labyrinth of rooms that each around every corner or through every door is a different experience. And sometimes there could be a common thread throughout them, or sometimes you could just be moving randomly through whatever kind of spaces that you happen upon. And this space Rumino has gained a number of cool things that the kids bring with them. For instance, their bags, their backpacks. Well, actually, backpacks are kind of like a bag of holding where they can reach into it and pull anything from their room that they might need that they forgot, so that they can always say, "Oh, I didn't forget. I had it with me." But that's more of a mechanic again, and it's a borrowed one at that. So some of the other things that are in the lore, for instance, there are roomsmiths. For instance, I call the person telling the story a roomsmith, but the players have met a roomsmith along the way, someone who kind of takes care and maintains Rumino. And I think that there are questions about whether or not Rumino is a city or a whole world, or whether it's a spaceship flying through the cosmos, or whether it's another dimension or a game that they're sucked into. I think there's a fun thing there. But at the end of the day, I think that it's a play space. It's a sandbox that we can create a lot of different experiences in. And just like a lot of other settings that you're used to. But I think there's room to create fantasy, and there's room to create science fiction. There's room to create, a Candyland of adventure. So, in that regard, I've also fallen in love with the setting of this role playing game. In the end, I loved the advice that I was given to focus on the thing that was most unique. And it made me wonder that even if the rule system was, it's super rules light, and maybe I came up with something so unique in that rule system that had never been seen before, I think setting might still have an edge over a rule, because I think you can often make a setting more unique. Or I might say in this case, like I'm not creating another, Lord of the Rings fantasy setting, which you can find a lot of different role-playing games that go back to that and then put a little twist on it. But in essence, it's still sort of in a genre. I think Rumino sits outside of the more classic genres of sci-fi and fantasy, and sits in more of a space like a Jumanji or but could play in fantasy or pirates or sci-fi down the road. So I think no matter, I have few rules to work with to bring uniqueness to it. And I think there are other people that claim, rules light light systems. And so I think Rumino is the winner, is the thing that's more maybe interesting, and is the uniqueness to promote in this book. So one of the things one of the things I'm doing is that the first book is going to be called Let's Go to Roomino, this zine that I'm creating for Kickstarter. And I've started working on cover art that I think could work. It could completely change. We'll get to that down the road. We'll figure that out later. But by focusing in on the place, there's also kind of being able to, I don't know, it's a little bit more interesting of a title. Let's Go to Roomino. Also was sharing it with a friend of mine who has dug into it a little bit. And when I've explained to him rules system and the rules of it, again, there's not a ton there to sink your teeth into. But then when I start talking about the Roomino and the place, it gets him excited. It gets him interested in bringing his kids there through storytelling, etc. So I think it's fair to say that Roomino, this labyrinth, this infinite labyrinth of finite spaces, also really kind of feels like a very clever way of talking about it, is the way to go for me, at least to start with, and to see if I can pull people in with the setting and then get them to fall in love with the rules as well, as light as they may be. So I guess that's a question for you. What's unique about your creation? What's unique about what's most unique about what you're working on? Is it the setting or is it the mechanics? And I think sometimes I do think that there's a time and place where a mechanic might be so unique that you could plop it down in any of the settings, but people are curious to try out that mechanic. I remember when Monte Cook Games came out with Numenera, and it was it had 3 stats and a unique way of using it. I was very intrigued by that, having played a lot more D&D. So what is unique about your setting or your mechanics that would lead people to be curious about your role-playing game? All right, that's it for this episode. In episode 4, I'm going to be talking about the manuscript, the table of contents, what I'm including in this and what I'm what I'm leaving out to fit into this zine format. And I've got a cool advice tip that I got off of TikTok for that. Subscribe, follow along, share with others. If you want to support my Kickstarter coming up February 1st, go to the link in the show notes and check the box to be updated when it goes live. I would love to have you there just to see how it goes live and see what I do to put the page together. And any feedback that you have, please share that down in the comments below. Again, thank you for being on this journey with me, whether you've started episode 1 or this is your first episode, whether we've chatted on some of the Discord servers that I'm in, or if this is our first time chatting. Thanks for being here.